Hey everyone, welcome to another C++ video. Make sure to pay attention, take notes, and of course, master C++ with me. Challenge was to add 10 numbers to a sum. If they were even, you want to add it, and if they're odd, you want to subtract it. So let's first define our int sum, set to 0, make sure it's initialized. Then we can write our for loop, declare I is less than 10, so it goes 10 times, and then I++. And then we just want to let's also define a temp variable here, int a. And we don't need to initialize this since it's going to be given a value through the cin. So cin a. Now, if a mod 2 equals 0, then this is a Boolean expression. And so this means that it's an even number, right? And if it's an even number, we want to sum plus equals a. And then an else, we can write an else here, and we can do sum minus equals a. And that's pretty much it for the base level. If you want to do the bonus, a quick way to do this is just write an int n here, and then cin. And then instead of 10, just put n here. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Now, let's get on to the main part of today's video. So you may recall last week's lesson was about for loops, but for loop is not the only type of looping construct that we have. In fact, we have another loop that is known as the while loop, which is going to be our topic for today. So first, let's quickly go over for loops. So you may recall that this is sort of the way that a for loop is structured. So first we have the declaration of the variable, which is int I is 0. Then it goes to the Boolean expression I is less than 5, for example, and then the increment or decrement of the variable, which is I++. Now let's talk about how we write a while loop. So the way we write a while loop is just while and then Boolean expression. So basically what this does is while whatever this Boolean expression is true, it keeps going again and again. It keeps running until this Boolean expression proves false. So with this, we have to be careful that we don't get any infinite loops, because if inside your code, if you're not changing the value of the Boolean expression in any way at any point, then you might just get a loop that goes on forever and ever. And again, that's bad because then the program will crash. Now let me give an example of why we would use a while loop instead of a for loop. So let's say we're given a number n, int n, and let's say we see it in. And let's say this program wants to print out the number of digits in number n. Now, my approach to this would be, first, let's say we have So my approach to this would be something like, we can do a while loop where, this is just sort of pseudocode. This is not actually what I'm going to write. While, let's say we have some Boolean expression, right? We want to divide n by 10. And then we have a counter that'll count the number of digits. So let's say we add to count. And then basically, now that we keep dividing it, right? So let's say the number is 4,096. So first time we divide it, we'll get 409. So the next time we divide it, we'll get 40. And the next time we divide it, we'll get 4. And then we'll get 0. So basically, this, let's say we have the count, right? The count at this point will be 0 because nothing has been divided. Then it'll be 1, then it'll be 2, then 3, then 4. And our answer is actually just 4, right? Because 4096 has 4 digits. So our case here should be while n is not equal to 0. Okay, so now let's write that in actual C++ code. Let's say we have our int count and we set to 0. We go while n is not equal to 0. And then inside here, we want to write n divide equals 10. And then count plus plus. And then we want to see out the number of digits. So we just go see out count. And then let's just say end out. So now the way this will work, again, as I explained. So first we'll start off with, let's say n is 4096. So it'll go through here, and n is not equal to 0, so it'll divide n by 10, so you'll get 409, and then it'll add to count, so you'll get 1. 40, so then I'll go to 40, then I'll go to 2, then I'll go to 4, we'll go to 3. And at 4, it's still not equal to 0. So I'll go to 0. It'll divide by 10. It'll go to 0. And it'll become 4. But now it's at 0. So when it goes here, it'll realize, oh, I have to exit. So it'll go straight from here all the way down to here. At that point, it'll just see out our count. So let's say you want to know how to differentiate between when's a good case to use a for loop and when to use a while loop. So for for loops, it's very beneficial to use them when you're given the size of like the operation or whatever you need to do. So for example, let's say you have to write a program, so then you're given n, and then so let's say n is 5 in the inputs, and then the next 5 lines will contain 2 integers, and you have to sum the 2 integers on each line, and then you have to return the sum. You have to see out the sum. So in this case, it would be very easy to just use a for loop from 0 to n, and at each position you want to see in a and b, which are 2 values, and then you want to just see out the sum of a plus b. And that's all you have to do, and it would be a lot more difficult with a while loop since you don't know when to stop. Okay, now when do I use a while loop? So other than the example that I've already provided of the, let's say you want to count the number of digits, right? In that case too, think about it. We don't know how many digits. It could be a 30-digit number, but the for loop wouldn't be able to account for that. So the reason that we could use a while loop is that in a case where you don't know the size of the operation or whatever you have to do. So let's say you're given an int n, and you want to find the first power of 5 that's greater than n. So this might sound confusing, but let's say you were given the number 22, then the answer should return 25, since 5 to the 2 is the smallest power of 5 that's larger than this. Let me give another example. Let's say the input was 155. You would return 625 because if we use 5 cubed, which is 125, 125 is still less than that. So we would have to use the next power of 5, 625, which is greater than this, so the program would return 625. Okay, so now you understand the program that I'm proposing. Let's say, how would we do this? We should take an input. Let's just say we have the value of n already. What we could do is, while we have a temp variable here, right? Int temp is equal to 1, since 1 is 5 to the 0. While temp is less than n, you just want to temp times equals 5. And that's literally it. You can just see out temp here. So you may be wondering how this works, and so I can show you. So what basically, let's say our n is 55, and temp will start at 1, because that's how we defined it, right? Then temp will go to 5, because temp is still less than n, so then it will go to 25. And then again, it's still less, so it'll go to 125. And then finally, since 125 is not less than n, then it'll just see out 125, which is what we're looking for. It's extremely important that you completely understand both of these two loops, and we'll continue to practice with them the rest of this course. Obviously, there is some overlapping between these two. Like, there is a gray area where you can use either loop, and it doesn't it's like not any less efficient, it's just as good. However, again, I'd like to say it's really important that you know both of these, because sometimes you're going to need to pull out one of them, and it's going to be really key for you. Now, let's get on to the challenge for today. So today's challenge is going to be to first see in integers until a negative integer is inputted, which means in the inputs there'll be something like 4, 5, 10, 120, and let's say negative 3 or negative 4, and you need to see in all of these integers. And then you want to add each of these integers to a sum, and then basically divide it by the number of integers that were inputted to find the average, and you want to see that out. Thanks for watching today's video. Make sure to check out the rest of the C++ playlist to continue to sharpen your computer science skills.